accustomed to the eternal and the true, her being conscious of his divine founds, asks not from mortal frailty pain's relief. Patch not with failure, bargain or compromise. Life itself, in a strange world of ours, is a big prison house. It is a big prison house. But then, the world itself is a prison. It is a prison for life. It is life's prison. Everything is trapped and locked in the gloomy cells of this prison. At the tall gates of the prison are stationed stern sentinels, cast with iron helmets and grim faces at every place. The elements of our mortality keep the throne of inconscience safe. There is no escape. There is no escape from mortality, which again derives its existence from the dark and stubborn inconscience. Even the aspiring soul within us cannot escape this hold of mortality. That which it came to remove from nature, that itself is having a hold on this aspiring soul. It cannot fly beyond the earthly skies. There is an abominable indictment. Constantly we are called before the court. We had to stand in the court of the dark power. The justice who himself is dark, and darker yet in the darker robe. In this court of life, in this court of this world, life must pay for joy, pay for growth, pay for expansion, pay for progress. Yet, one is not sure whether it will be possible to get justice from a mechanic judge. We are penalized for the hopes we carry in our hearts. We have to accept a stark decree. We have to bear the stroke of unrestrained, immoderate destiny. This is the lot of the mind-born man. The lot of mind-born man to bear the stroke of unrestrained, immoderate destiny. But Savitri is different. Savitri is different from the mind-born man. In her is present the superhuman seed, the superwoman who never stoop down. She would never bow down to the lowly and the limiting. Her greatness is to bring greatness to life's smallness here. The golden meaning of life cannot be robbed off from her, from Savitri. She has even in the human life the native greatness of the eternal and the true. Her inner being is conscious of her divine origin, of the original source, of the fount from which her life ensued. Savitri is always in contact with her greater being, the soul with the oversoul. Savitri's soul is in contact with her transcendental soul, the soul with the oversoul. Human Savitri in contact with divine Savitri. Naturally, there is no question of Savitri soliciting relief from the blemished souls, from the cruel agents of life. She cannot have her mortality redeemed by begging to the mortal frailty. She would never make compromise or make bargain for success or rewards in life. Savitri has a work to do. She has come here to do a work. She has to do the work in the trying, opposing circumstances, in the death-haunted world. But Savitri has a force in her to get that work done. That which ought to be got done by her, that she is going to get done. That indefatigable force is toiling in her since the very beginning of the earth. It is that which eventually must succeed. But that can succeed only when Savitri establishes in her soul that divine force. It is towards that she must move. It is that which she must achieve. Establish in her soul the divine force. In it is the surety of a victory, victory over all evil circumstances that plague the present life, life of the mortal. Savitri can succeed only when she establishes in her soul the divine force.